The purpose of this video is to introduce you to how to download Anaconda Python, which is a distribution of Python we're going to be using to do some network programming with applications to understanding routing and the TCP/IP stack, as well as in our ethical hacker class, how to do network penetration testing. So the way you do it is as follows. Step number one, and the links are going to be in the description with this video, but you're going to go to Anaconda Python. So you're going to search for anaconda.com, and you're going to go here and you're going to say products individual edition, and you're going to download and install. So download for your operating system and install, and once you've installed it properly, if it's going properly, you can open PowerShell and you can type Python and you'll get something that looks like that. So if you can get that and it's showing you have some version of Python installed, you're good. And next you're going to go to PyCharm. And PyCharm is an IDE, an integrated development environment. And there's a video after this one that talks about how to use PyCharm. So go and download the Student Educational Edition, or excuse me, the Community Edition. Download that and install it. And then we're going to have that going for our class for next week. So do that now, and we'll be using that in class.
Text editors and IDEs provide some very handy tools like code coloring, automatic code cleaning and syntax error checking, and much more. In this workshop, I want to show you some of the features of a great Python IDE from JetBrains named PyCharm. An IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment, is a programming tool that encapsulates a lot of very useful tools like code editors, Git integration, and debugging tools into one handy package, and PyCharm is no exception. PyCharm provides all of the features that I mentioned before, and much more, like automated refactoring, coverage reports for your tests, and solid code suggestions when you're using Django, Pyramid, Flask, and other frameworks. I won't be able to show you everything that PyCharm offers. That would simply take way too much time. And besides that, JetBrains offers some wonderful documentation that you can refer to for things that I don't get to or that you forget. So head over to jetbrains.com, download the free trial of PyCharm, and let's get started learning about this very handy IDE. Okay, so this is the PyCharm website from JetBrains, and you can come here, read through the docs and demos, the features, all that kind of stuff, but what you're ultimately looking for is this download button, or this Get PyCharm Now button. Same difference. And you can download the Community Edition if you want. It's free. It'll do most of the stuff that I'm going to show you in this workshop. There are some things that it won't do that only the professional version does. Now, the cool thing is, if you get the professional version, if you want to get it, and you go to the buy link, there are ways to get it for less or for free. So if you're buying it for yourself, it's only $90 a year, which is fairly cheap. I know it's not insanely cheap, but it's fairly cheap. And then there's also some discounted ones for education and training, students and teachers. As you're a student, if you email in to JetBrains, they might give you this qualification. I'm not sure if they will or not, but it's worth asking about, right? And if not, then there is definitely the educational version that you should be able to use. All right, so you'll get PyCharm, you get it installed, you'll launch it, and it'll look something like this. So I want to create a new project. And I want it to be a Python project, but I don't want to use 2.7. I installed 3.5, and if you haven't done that yet, you can go check out the local Python workshop. So I needed to tell this where my interpreter is. Now you'll only have to do this one time, but you see these ellipses here. You're going to click on those and you're going to say add local. So you're going to add in a local Python. Now it's not at user bin Python for me. It is at another directory, which I don't remember. So let's do this. Terminal, which Python 3. So it is at this directory. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, here we go. So paste that in, and it finds it. Awesome. And I say, okay. And it's going to update these skeletons, which really this is just like, okay, how do we what are all of our bits and pieces of Python 3. So it's going to do that, and that's cool. And it creates this directory for you called PyCharm projects. And so I'm just going to put a name in here that I'm just going to call PyCharm workshop. So that's what we're doing. And then I'm going to hit create. And boom. So we have our workshop. So we've got a projects files thing here, which there's nothing listed in yet except for this IDEA, which these are configuration files for IDEA, which is like the IDE that PyCharm is based on. It's based on IntelliJ IDEA. So you'll see the .idea folder. Or you can click on project and you'll see this. And this will show like external libraries. So here's Python's libraries and all of that stuff. Most of the time, you're not going to care about what's in there. You're only going to care about what's in here. So feel free to look at the project files view instead. It's a little bit nicer. So we added an interpreter and we started a new project. So let's start a new script. I'm going to, here on PyCharm Workshop, I'm going to hit Command N. And you're going to see this thing right here, this green thing. I have that turned on for you. You won't have that on your own version of PyCharm, so don't worry about that popping up all the time. So we can say a new file, or we can specifically say a new Python file. And then since I have the Pro version, I can do HTML files, JavaScript files, stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit File, because it doesn't really matter. And we're going to do a new file name. So I'm just going to say first.py. This is my first Python file for here. All right, so a couple things that we want to turn on. Let's go to View and Active Editor, and we want it to show white spaces, because white space is important in Python, and we want it to show line numbers, because line numbers are important in every language. You'll also see that we have this indent guides turned on, and you'll see that in just a minute. So let's make a function, because this is Python. And so all of these IDs, one of the things they offer is something that's called IntelliSense or code completion, or there's probably several other names for it. If I do DE, you see this window that pops up. This window is a PyCharm trying to figure out what I want to do. So if I just have a D, there's a whole lot of options because there's a lot of things that have D in them. But it knows that def is the most likely. I probably want to type def. So I actually just hit tab, and it just puts that in for me. I can also do dot. That doesn't do anything. In some IDEs, dot does the completion. In PyCharm, it does not. But I can also just hit enter, and that'll put it in. So def, and then we'll put in a name for our function. So let's just say hello. And we'll require a name argument. And now we're inside of our function. And so you can see that we've got our indentation stuff here. And these right here let us do code folding. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So first of all, let's just print out, actually I want to show you that too. If I type in print, see how it has this objects, sep, end, file, whatever? If I do print, and I just sit here for a minute, it starts to show this stuff, and I can put in as many objects as I want, separators, ends, things like that. So I'm going to put in howdy, and then these two bits, and I'm going to close my string. I'm going to do dot, and then it starts pulling up. These are the things that all work on strings. See how they have str over here? This shows the class that they work on. I want format, so I'm going to do FO, and it's like, oh, he wants format. So it pops that up. I can press enter, and format comes up. Format just expects args and kwargs, so we need to pass those in. So I'm going to put in the name variable. And again, it doesn't just work with Python. I type in, and it knows that it has a parameter called Python, or called name, rather. And so I can just press enter, and it'll put name in for me. So if I want to be really lazy, and if I don't want to do a lot of typing, PyCharm goes a long way in that. So let's add in some more stuff here. First of all, I want to show this code folding. If I click on either one of these minus signs, then it folds up. And you can see it has an ellipses here, and it's got a plus sign here. Now if I hover over the ellipses, it'll show me the bottom of the function. Let's add in a little bit more stuff here. And let's actually break this out a little bit. We'll pretend that we don't, we've got a lot more code than we do. So if we close this up, and then it'll show me my whole thing. And if I open it back up, you see these vertical lines running here? Those are my indentation guides. Now sometimes the indentation guides and the white spaces kind of conflict, and you might want to turn one on or the other. I kind of like having them both on. I don't mind the visual noise, but that's going to be up to you. So now let's actually use our function. So we'll say if, and again, I do the I, starts to give me a bunch of stuff, right? So if, and then I need to do something for my if. Now, I haven't done anything yet. You notice there's these squigglies, the red squigglies? That means something is wrong. And if you look, there's red squigglies on the file name in both places that it shows up. So there's something wrong in this file. And there's even a red line right over here. And it's saying, okay, I'm either expecting an indent or an expression. I don't know which thing I'm expecting. And up here is another warning telling us that there's a couple of errors found. So let's go ahead and do this. So if dunder name is equal to dunder main, then we want to do say hello, and we'll pass in Kenneth. So I saved everything, Command S. This little thing that pops up here, these are like options that PyCharm thinks you might want to do. So you can click on that, you can choose to reformat the file, you can do a lot of other stuff. Let's see what happens if we choose reformat file. So it made it look a little bit nicer, kind of cleaned up a couple of things. It put more spaces in right here. Let's Command Z. See how there's only one space there? So there's only one space. I can actually come up here to code, that's where it is, and choose reformat code, and it'll do that for me. Where this is really cool is if we did something like this, where we did, say, 2 spaces right there. And then I can come up to code and reformat code. And it knows that how I like Python code. It knows Python code is 4 spaces, things like that. So it'll automatically reformat that for me. It's a handy thing to do from time to time. All right, so let's save this. And now let's run this file. So I need to go out to my terminal, right? No, I don't. That's the cool thing. I can go here to run, and I can choose this run with the 3 ellipses. I only have to do this the first time. I choose that, and these are my run configurations. So I can make a new configuration, or I can let PyCharm do what it thinks I want to do, which is to run first, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to run it, and this right here, so we have multiple windows at the bottom here. This window right here is window number 4, and it's called run. And the output was howdy Kenneth. You can see here it ran Python 3, and it ran first.py. It printed out howdy Kenneth, and it finished with an exit code of 0. So this is nice for a quick way to just run your program. And this works for really long programs, really short programs, whatever kind of program you are working on. And you can either click this button here, that kind of looks like it's pointing at a thermometer, or you can just click run and it'll hide that for you. If your process was really long running, you would have a stop sign over here too that you could hit stop. All right, so let's say that I want to make my program a little bit more random. And I want to get a number, and I want to do random.randint 1 and 10,000. And then I want to say howdy Kenneth, and then I want to print you're our visitor. And I'm going to format that with num. So I don't have random imported. See how it has this underline, the squigglies again? So it doesn't know what to do there. So if I hit Option Enter, on this line it doesn't know what to do. But if I'm on this line and I hit Option Enter, it's like, okay, how do we figure this out? So I can tell it just to ignore it, like this stuff is all good. Don't worry about this stuff. I can do that 2 different places. Or I can rename it. Maybe I used the wrong name. I didn't want to use random, I wanted to use some other library. Or I can tell it to import this name. So I'm going to say import this name, and then I get to pick where I want to import it from. I can import it from random, or I can try to import it from random.random, which isn't going to work. So let's import from the Python library random. Press return, and now import random is up here. So this is just a holdover. We don't need that anymore. So we'll save again. And so now we don't need to go to run and then the one with the ellipses. We can just say run first. We can hit Control R, or we can just click this arrow up here. So I'm the 3060th visitor. Cool. Let's run it again to see what number I get that time. 3809. Yeah, you're getting a lot of numbers kind of close to each other. And every time I click the play arrow, I just get it run again. All right, so that's pretty nice. Even nicer is this kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't like that anymore. I'm going to take that out, and I'm not going to get a random number anymore. So let's save. First of all, two things happened. I have import random is now grayed out. It's not being used anymore. And I'm not using it, so I should get rid of it. So if I go to code and I choose optimize imports, or on a Mac, control option O, then the import is taken out because I'm not using it anymore. And if I save and I run, everything works just like it did the first time. So being able to create a new interpreter, being able to use IntelliSense to figure out what code I want to put in because maybe I don't remember all these things and I don't remember all the arguments to these things, and then being able to let it handle my imports for me, whether that's adding new ones or taking ones out, is really, really useful.
А в деревню заехал, коней напоить, вздумал деревню гурьбой удивить. Эх, трай-ля-ля, вздумал деревню гурьбой удивить. А старая старуха сметлива была, дочку Маруську с собой увела. Эх, трай-ля-ля, дочку Маруську с собой увела. А старый старик свое дело смекнул, старую старуху он локтем толкнул. Эх, трай-ля-ля,